Howdy folks, and welcome to the Salt Mines Discord Q&A for April. Yes, April. And if you're watching this on Monday, then welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. Welcome to everybody who turned up on Discord and posted their questions. There's a couple of things I'm going to need to get out of the way first before I actually start looking at the questions. And the fact that I get very tired very easily means that this may not be as long as you're used to for the Discord monthly Q&A, because obviously I just got home from hospital after having a heart attack last Tuesday night, and that was fun in a not very fun way at all. The thing is, I mean, it was a heart attack, but there are heart attacks and there are heart attacks. It wasn't a cardiac arrest. My heart didn't stop, but I still had a heart attack, and they put this thing called a stent. It was amazing actually, because that ambulance slapped an ECG on me, said, "Oh, you're having a heart attack." Get me into a wheelchair, drove me to the to the hospital, and within an hour I was on my back, and I didn't even know what they were doing, because the idea that they would have like probes in my heart while I was conscious without any anaesthetic I wouldn't have believed it was possible. But they managed to get it in. It's kind of like a colonoscopy, except they go to your heart rather than your asshole. The tube went in through my wrist. If they couldn't get it through my wrist, it would have gone in through my groin and my femoral artery, and then from there up my arm, through my chest, and around the various different arteries and aorta around the heart to the one where the blockage. What had happened was there'd been a build-up of cholesterol, and a bit had cracked off, and it had gotten blocked in one of the arteries around the back of my heart, and that's what had caused the heart attack. So they literally just shoved this tube up my arm with a little balloon on the end of it, inflated that, got rid of the blockage, and then put this thing called a stent, which is it's a tiny little titanium alloy tube, sort of like mesh tube. They put that in, and then they inflate it, and they leave it there for the rest of your life, and it holds the artery open, and eventually, the artery will grow over it, and then it's there for good, and that keeps the artery open. And they did this while I was conscious, and it wasn't until afterwards they said, "Right, we're done." So they said, "We put a stent in." I said, "What's a stent?" They explained what they'd done. I was like, "Wait, isn't that the sort of thing you normally tell people before you do it?" Maybe they had, maybe I hadn't been paying attention, I don't know. But that came as a bit of a surprise. So 3 days in hospital. They obviously keep you in to make sure that everything went well. They do an ultrasound on the heart to make sure everything's pumping properly, which it was. The actual medical care was amazing. It's the bureaucracy after the medical care that's not so good. I was in on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, 24 hours in bed. They wouldn't even let me get up to go to the toilet. And then 2 days after that, they were like, "Right, you can go home today." Because we need your bed. Initially, I had my own room. It was great. My own room with a bathroom and shower and all that. It was fantastic. Then they came in at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, "We need to move you." Well, fair enough. I mean, I felt fine. If somebody else needs the facilities more than I do, sure. So they wheeled me into into a ward, and I was in that ward for about 8 hours. And then they said, "We need this bed as well." So they moved me from the bed into a chair in the ward, where I sat for 2 hours waiting for the doctor on the ward to write my discharge note, which eventually happened. And they said, "Right, now you can go down to the discharge lounge, collect your medication, and go home." Oh, fantastic. So they wouldn't even let me walk to the discharge lounge. So they wheeled me to the discharge lounge in a wheelchair, sat me in a chair, and I was there for 5 hours waiting for the pharmacy to deliver my prescription of medication. 5 hours. 2 hours waiting for the doctor to write the discharge note. 5 hours for the pharmacy to actually prescribe the medications. I mean, I get it. There's like one pharmacy in the hospital, and they're not just arranging medication for everybody who's being discharged. They also arrange medication for every patient in the hospital at least once a day. So they've got a very busy job, but 5 hours. But anyway, got home. Poor Nino didn't recognise me at first. He was scared, thought it was a stranger in the house. But it didn't take long. The cats were, they'd missed me. Nino right now is sitting on the shelf above the PC. He's taken over Akazuki's position. He basically copies everything that Akazuki does. He's obsessed with her. He does everything that she does. He follows her around everywhere. He absolutely idolises her. She's sick of him. She's like, for God's sake, leave me alone. But that's where I am, basically. I'll have to take it easy very easy for the first week. After the first week, I can do light tasks like going to the shops. And I'm not supposed to be working, but like I said, when your job is sitting in a comfortable chair talking into a microphone, I'll risk it. So I'm probably going to be business as usual as of, well, if you're watching this as Monday's Mingles with Jingles, as of today, if you turned up live for the Q&A, as of tomorrow, since we record this on the first Sunday of each month, and that would be today, as we're recording it, the 6th of April. Anyway, that's keeping you all up to date on what's happened. I'm going for my hat trick now. I've had the cancer. I've had the heart attack. See you next year when I've had my stroke. It's the only thing I'm missing for my near fatal injury bingo card. No, let's hope not. Strokes are, like I mean, heart attacks, they're not fun, but they could be worse. So the cancer wasn't fun. The treatment was very not fun, but as far as cancers go, if you have to get cancer, get bowel cancer, because it takes the longest to develop and it's the easiest to treat. And I had the mildest of mildly possible heart attacks. I don't think there's such a thing as a mild stroke, so let's hope that doesn't happen. And I'm on a cocktail of drugs that would make Pablo Escobar blush. Most of them for at least a month, some of them for the rest of my life. But yeah, like I say, better than the alternative. So let's crack on with the questions. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep going because I do get very tired very easily. But let's have a go. And once again, Discord has decided that I don't want to have a look at the start of the questions for Jingles channels. Let's scroll halfway down to a random question. Technology. Anyway, so first question. This one from Basement Jesus. He says, Dear Jingles, you're once again young and stupid. Well, I've always been stupid, but okay, young and stupid. It's time to join the Navy again. Except this time Britain, like all of the major navies of the world, has decided to keep her great capital ships after modernising them. And you get to choose which class to serve on. Do you still go serve on frigates, or are you going to serve on a larger, class of vessel? You know, I don't know if this is kind of funny actually, because if you've ever visited HMS Belfast in London, and if you haven't, I do recommend it. If you're in London, it's a really, really good place to visit. I was on there, I can't remember the reason, was in London to meet somebody. We thought, we'll meet on HMS Belfast, and what was his, I can't remember, Canadian World of Tanks, whatever, doesn't matter, I can't remember who he was, but I mean, I can remember him, I just can't remember his name because I'm crap. But anyway, wandering around the Belfast. Belfast, of course, World War II, town class, light cruiser. Light cruiser, the size of a lot of countries' heavy cruisers. Obviously, a difference between a light cruiser and a heavy cruiser has got nothing to do with the size or the armour. It's all to do with the calibre of guns. And Belfast was 6-inch guns, so it's a light cruiser. But what struck me most was just how little most of the things on that ship had changed from World War II to the 80s, 90s, 2000s when I was in the Navy. The accommodations had changed. We didn't sleep in hammocks anymore. We had our own bunks in the mess decks on the ships that I served on. Whereas on the Belfast, there were big open mess decks where everybody would basically sling their hammocks, and that's where you would sleep. Other than that, mostly everything else was pretty much the same. They had the same damage control stations. They had basically exactly the same damage control equipment. Most of the firefighting stuff was more or less exactly the same, except the breathing apparatus was a little bit antiquated compared to the stuff that we would use. But all the hoses were basically the same. The nozzles were basically the same. Drums of Triple F fluid for making foam, basically exactly the same. All the hatches, all of the, for example, here's how you tell, right? You're in a compartment. You know that you suspect there may be some kind of hazard on the other side of this hatch. Hatch is a door in the Navy. Could be a fire, could be a flood on the other side, could be nothing. But the only way to find out is to open the hatch. And if it's a fire, that's really, really bad. And if it's a flood, that's also really bad. Except you don't need to open the hatch, because every hatch on every ship has these. I'll get around to answering your actual question soon, Basement Jesus. But every hatch has a sort of plug, a big brass plug, set in the middle of the hatch, and it's basically it's like a bolt, but it's made of brass. And what you do is you unscrew it, and halfway down the thread there's a hole, and you unscrew it until the hole appears. And if air starts whistling out of the hole, there's a flood on the other side of that hatch, because the rising water is forcing the air out. So that's how you know there's a flood on the other side. And if the air gets sucked in through the hole, you know there's a fire on the other side, because the fire's consuming the oxygen, and so fresh oxygen's whistling in through the hole in the thread of the bolt on the door. And they've still got those, because why pay for fancy, expensive thermoelectric computer monitoring equipment when all you need is a brass bolt with a hole to do exactly the same thing that doesn't require power and is still going to work even if the ship suffers a total electrical failure? All of that kind of stuff has been on our ships dating back since the First World War, and it's still there because it works. So getting back to Basement Jesus, and that's just one example. I could go on for days talking about the sort of stuff that is still on modern warships that has been around for like 100 years. But getting back to Basement Jesus' question, aside from being on something like maybe a battleship, it wouldn't really be that different. And I don't know, because I know being on a big ship like a battleship or a heavy cruiser or something like that, it's got its plus sides and it's got its downsides. Because obviously we didn't have any battleships when I was in the Navy, but we did have aircraft carriers, and anybody who served on a carrier was known as a carrier queen. Anybody who served on a frigate, I probably can't repeat. Yeah, let's move on swiftly, or I'm going to get myself cancelled. But serving on a carrier, a big ship, the good side was it's very easy to lose yourself in the crowd. If you don't want to get bothered, there are ways and means of just not being noticed, because there's so many people. Like the unit personnel office, the ship's office on a destroyer, has one senior rate, one leading rate, and two able rates, and that's it. There's 4 of you. That's it. From the entire ship's company, there's 4 writers on. Well, there'd be a 5th writer, but he'd be down in the tech office, or she would be down in the tech office, effectively working for themselves. But in the ship's office, that would be it. 1 senior rate, 1 leading rate, 2 able rates, 4 writers for the entire ship's company. On a carrier, you'd have an entire unit personnel office with a lieutenant, a chief, or a warrant officer, a bunch like 3 petty officers, probably 6 leading rates, and then maybe 15 or 16 able rates. So, if you keep your head down and out of line of sight of any of the senior rates and leading rates, it's very easy to have an easy life on a big aircraft carrier, on a big ship, or on a battleship. So that's the good thing about serving on a big ship. But the good thing about serving on a small ship, where there's only the 4 of you, so it's impossible to hide, is that you do get more responsibility. So if you want to get noticed, it's a lot easier. If you're good at your job on a small ship, it's appreciated a lot more. Whereas you can be just as good at your job on a big ship, and nobody will notice because there's just so many of you. So if you want to stand out, small ships are better. But if you just want to, have an easy life and lose yourself in the crowd, then definitely big ships are better. How long did it take me to answer that question? That was a good one. But anyway, there you go. And I kind of prefer the small ships. Not small ships. We're not talking like fishery protection vessels and stuff like that, but smaller ships, frigates, destroyers, that sort of thing. But only if you're any good at your job, because if you're not, there's not enough of the other people within your branch to take up the slack and carry you. So yeah, if you're shit at your job, be on a big ship. If you're good at your job and you want to be appreciated, then be on a smaller ship, frigate or a destroyer. Oh, Did Nothing Too says, hey Jingles, have you ever considered getting into 3D printing? I did consider it. He says you can manufacture your own additions to your model building pile of shame. They have become a lot more affordable and user friendly, yeah. And design your own stuff as well, yeah, true. But I just don't really have the space for it. By which I mean there's still a lot of... they've become a lot more affordable and the quality has gone up. And they've become cheaper to use as well. I've got my friend James Brooksby, who you may know from games like Fractured Space and Classified France 1944. He's 3D printed me some stuff, and the quality of the prints is just amazing. I've even gotten around to painting one of them. It's a little bust of the Mandalorian. But it's more to do with having the space, because I don't really have anywhere to put a 3D printer that would also allow sufficient ventilation for me to not kill myself while running it. So yeah, no, I have thought about it, but the answer to my thought was, yeah, where am I going to put it? So it wouldn't really work. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is far more user friendly and becoming more so every year. The pace that the technology is moving on is just amazing. But no, I just don't have the space. Oh God, what's this? The next question from Panzer Oofs, which I assume is short for Unter Offizier. But anyway, dear Mighty Overlord, congratulations. You got yourself kidnapped by the time-travelling aliens of the planet Blag, not to be confused with the non-time-travelling aliens of the planet Wag. Yeah, those aliens force you to travel back in time and change one major event in human history. Oh God, these questions. If you fail to obey, they threaten to drop you off at Sevastopol Station on December 6th, 2137. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, that's right before the events of Alien Isolation kicked off. So he knows how to press my buttons. Wearing only your pearly pink panties and maybe a survival knife, if the aliens feel generous that day. Only you and the time travel aliens will remember the timeline that you erased by your actions, and you'll be invisible and invincible during your doings. What major event in human history are you going to change? In which way? And what will our timeline look like in your opinion? I hate these kind of questions, because they're the kind of thing that you just... I don't know, maybe there are people out there that can spin off an instant, entertaining, funny, witty, amusing, just snap their fingers, bang, there's your answer. I have to think about that sort of thing. It's not the sort of thing that you can really pause to do in the middle of a live Q&A. What would I do? I think it's probably not the sort of thing that you're expecting, but I would go back to when I was about to walk into the recruiting office for the Royal Navy in Newcastle in 1989, and slap myself around the head and shoulders until I agreed to not sign up as a radio operator and sign up as a writer instead, and save myself 4 years of misery. Off the top of my head, that's what I would do, but I'm sure there are much, much better and much funnier things that you could think. If you've got the entirety of human history to go back and change one event. I did say one major event, well, it was a major event for me. But yeah. Oh, I'll tell you the other thing that I would do. I would cut down on the amount of cholesterol in my diet. Because the funny old thing, we're going back to the heart attack here again, but the week before I had the heart attack, I had a call from the pharmacy, because I'd had a blood test a week or a week and a half before that. The results of the blood test came back because of high blood pressure, because amongst other things, as well as the diabetes medication. I'm on high blood pressure medication as well. And they looked at the blood test and said, oh, your cholesterol levels are a little high. They're not dangerous, but we might have to start doing something about it. And I said, well, I could just cut down on pork and beef and stuff like that, because I don't have that many diet options as a diabetic. Not if I want to not be a diabetic. So I'm cutting down on all of the sugar, which means that sugar and carbohydrates, basically, which if I was to start cutting down on anything that had fat in it as well, I'd be eating brown bread and water for the rest of my life. So, there aren't a lot of options. But one of the things I could do is maybe cut down on red meat, eat fish, which is fine because I like fish. So that's great. So eat more fish, more white meat, chicken, cut down on the pork and the beef. And I was having this conversation with the pharmacist, and he was like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, if you want to try lifestyle and, dietary choices first rather than medical, because the National Health Service, if they can get you to do something that isn't going to cost them anything, that's always what they recommend first. So dietary and lifestyle changes, oh yeah, fantastic, because it costs money for them to prescribe your medication. So we both agreed that's what I was going to do. And then a week later I had a heart attack because of cholesterol build-up. So anyway, but right after the procedure at the hospital, and it was still kind of fresh in my mind as I'm speaking to the cardiologist who just performed the procedure to put the stent in, because she said that there was some cholesterol build-up there, but it wasn't that bad, but a bit had formed like a hard deposit that had broken off and blah blah, and that's what had caused the heart attack. And I said, well, yeah, so I'm already in the process of changing. She said, oh, it doesn't matter, you can change your diet, it won't make any difference. So, the pharmacologist was like, oh, yes, dietary change. We'll go with that. That will work. The cardiologist, the actual doctor who specialises in hearts, yeah, it won't make the slightest bit of difference. It will make a big difference if I'd started 30 years ago. But at this point, the only treatment is medication. I can change my diet. It won't make any difference. The damage has been done. It's been done decades ago. So anybody who is listening to this, maybe cut down on the beef and have a bit more fish and chicken, because the consequences, you won't feel them today, but 30 years from now you might. So yeah, there you go. So that's one other thing that I would probably do. I'd try to, although if I was to go back 30 years, I wouldn't really have that many, because I'd be in the Navy and I'd basically be eating what they gave me. It's not like you can walk in and select from a menu in a mess on board a frigate or a destroyer. So I don't know, maybe it would have been too late and I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it, but whatever. Anyway, moving on, next question. So this is from Musafa. Dear mightiest of gnomeship, may I humbly offer my best wishes to your health, so that we shall be ruled by your gnomeship for many years to come. You may, thank you. I did as he told us and earned a claim to... Oh, he's talking about Elite Dangerous here. Hyades Sector VOIB94 at Chatham Dock. So what he's talking about here is back when the Odyssey expansion for Elite Dangerous was coming out, a bunch of us YouTubers and stuff were given the opportunity of naming a planetary settlement. And I named mine Chatham Dock. And they told me where it was so that I could go and visit it, and which I did. And I was like, oh, this is the place that I've named after the first Royal Navy dockyard. I could have named it something stupid, and they would have let me do that, but I thought, no, we'll keep it sensible. And then probably forgot where it was. So this is where Chatham Dock is, the surface station that I named in Elite Dangerous. And Usafa is here to report that the first starport will be up and running by the middle of next week. Yes, because this is the new thing in Elite Dangerous. You can actually control systems and build orbitals now. So it'll be followed by a relay and security station to ensure that no miners will escape. I'm here to ask permission to start the extraction on Planet C4 as soon as security is up and running. It will be filled up with as many extraction settlements as they can fit. Fantastic. Yes, permission granted. Remember, everybody has to pay for their own pickaxes and mining tools. Oh, and he also says, independent of that, your brain got abducted by a rogue AI and you're forced into World of Warcraft to actually run your salt mines. Which branch gets extra shifts first, and what's your first order overall? Yeah, I'm immediately thinking of the Oh, what expansion was it? I think it was Warlords of Draenor expansion for Warcraft, where you got a garrison that you could run. It was like technically player housing, and it had its own mine. I don't know if you remember the Christmas Jingles videos that I would do. Anytime I was wandering around my salt mine in those little machinima videos, that was inside the mine in the World of Warcraft player garrison. It was full. It was great. It was perfect. It was full of people slaving away, digging away at piles of ore and stuff. Anyway, what was the question? Which branch gets... Oh, I don't know. I'm too old and crap. Which branch gets extra shifts first, and what's your first order overall? And my first order is that the beatings will continue until morale improves, and then we'll just see where we go from there. Next question. How are we doing for time? Oh, we're about halfway through the normal length. Well, I'm doing all right, actually. I'm not that tired. Tank 50... Oh, this will be the... yes, it is. His M1 Garand update. There we go. Oh, she's home, and she pings. Yeah, he has a probably mostly working M1 Garand now. Let's have a look. He's got a link to a video. Is it a video? Video for download over at DeviantArt. Okay, I'll check that out. I can't check it out now. I'm busy answering people's questions, but I will check that out later. Two things. The ping can't be heard over the final shot. Okay. What he's talking about here is the M1 Garand, because it feeds from a stripper clip. You insert the whole clip of 8 shots into the breach, and it will automatically eject the clip, making a very distinctive ping noise once it fires the 8th shot. That's what he's talking about, the distinctive M1 Garand ping. Where was he? He'll have something more about the rifle in next month's Q&A. He's currently working with the staff on something special for it. Ooh. So, new apartment. Oh, he's in a new apartment. Nice, cheaper, and with more space. Oh, fantastic! Wow, how did you wangle that one? Cheaper with more space. Now his question. So, yes, when playing city building survival games like Dawn of Man, I don't think I know that game. But anyway, is there anything that gets you pulling what's left of your hair out? For me, it's situations like I had in Avon Colony, where the colonists were rioting over a lack of water because they weren't working the water extractors. They all died as a result. Oh, that's a good one. So yeah, your colonists are all rioting because you hadn't given them any water. But the only reason they don't have any water is because none of them are working the water extractors that you get. Yeah, that's a good one. The thing that winds me up is micromanaging like that in games like that. That more than anything is the kind of thing that does wind me up about city building survival management games, when you do provide the facilities, but then the game expects you to micromanage to a tedious degree like that. You know, they build the water extractors, but because you don't assign people to work on them, everybody dies of thirst and then blames you for it. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that winds me up about that kind of games. Oh, let's see. Next question, Dusty. Hello, Jingles. Hope you're feeling better. I am. I'm not feeling too bad, actually. I just, kind of get tired a bit more easily than I did, but that's to be expected. Your comment about Death having a near Jingles experience reminded me of the first time I saw that version of the saying with Terry Pratchett's Thud, where Death has a near Vimes experience. He's talking about Captain Vimes. Originally Sergeant Vimes, and then Captain Vimes, and then Lord Vimes from Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels. Death has a near Vimes experience. Yes, I have. I've read everything that Terry Pratchett's ever written, including the not so good stuff. Unfortunately, Terry Pratchett died, and he wasn't doing particularly well towards the end. It's a shame. I think he only stopped writing because he died. I think he probably should have stopped writing sooner, because his last book or two, they weren't that good. I mean, I still read them because he's written some of the funniest stuff you have ever read in your life, and he's not just funny, because there are certain authors. I can't remember his name, but sorry about that. I can't literally. I'm terrible with names. There are certain authors that remember to be funny, they remember to be witty, but Pratchett does that, or did that, and he also makes you think. He makes you think by being silly about serious things. And there are other like fantasy authors. They do the fun, they do the wit, but they don't bother doing anything serious. So it's all kind of frivolous, and you read the book, but it doesn't stay with you afterwards because it's like watching a Minecraft movie. It's just there to sell you popcorn. And there's another author he does books with titles like Raiders of the Lost Car Park, where he'll have a running gag all the way through of somebody turning up with a minigun, like that one out of the movie Predator. And this running gag will pop up like 15 times throughout and he starts getting really, and it's like self-referential, where the bad guy whips out a minigun in a running gag, just like the one out of Predator. And yet we get it. Get another joke. It's just because it's funny the first 15 times doesn't mean that, whereas Pratchett would do something like that, but he would make a point out of it by addressing something actually important that people care about, rather than just being a joke for the sake of being a joke. There weren't many other writers like him, and unfortunately he's been gone for a while. But yeah, his books were incredible. There's something that I'd do if I could go back and change a pivotal event in human history, because the very first Terry Pratchett book that I read, I was 16 years old, I was in high school, and the librarian in the school library was a huge fantasy fan, and she'd heard about these Discworld books by this new writer called Terry Pratchett, and she knew, because I was in the school library all the time, I loved reading, and obviously she read them first when the books came in, when she ordered them, but she made sure that I got them after her. So that's what I would do. I would go back and prevent her from telling me about Terry Pratchett's books, so that I could read them all now and enjoy them as much now as I did 40 years ago when I first read them, or maybe more, because I probably appreciate them a bit more than, like when I was 16, all I saw in them was the humour, and there's more to them than that. I figure if I was to read them again now, I'd get the humour just as much as I did when I was 16, but I'd also get the deeper themes, and I'd probably enjoy them even more the second time around. So that's another thing that I would do. I'd go back and I'd stop myself from reading Pratchett's books when I was 16, so I could appreciate them more by reading them now. And he was prolific as well. I don't know how many Discworld novels he wrote, but there were like dozens, and every one of them was amazing. Right, okay, where are we? How are we doing for questions? This one's from Barana Katsuki. Good morning, Jingles from Eindhoven. Oh, been there. Lovely town, by the way. Fantastic sushi place there. Just generally great food all around. Also, huge ginger cats everywhere. Wishing you a speedy recovery. I've been playing Assassin's Creed since Origins, and then Odyssey, Valhalla, and now the infamous Shadows. Despite all the negativity, it's a really nice game. Japan looks awesome, and fighting and stealth is really good. Do you intend to play it at all? What future AC game would you like to see? AI's Ubisoft really saved their asses. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of... I mean, I know everybody was hoping that Shadows was going to be awful and it would kill Ubisoft. And a lot of people were very upset when it wasn't awful. I mean, there were some parts about it that are awful. Like the voice acting is shockingly bad. It ranges from okay to thoroughly mediocre to cringingly terrible. And some of the stealth is a bit silly. Like, I've seen clips of, some of the stealth, it actually makes Star Wars Outlaws look good. Where you're crawling around on the feet of guards and they don't notice that you're there. But what it does do well, it does do very, very well. And like he says here, Japan looks awesome. And yeah, it does. It absolutely does. The world that they've done, that's something that they've always been good at doing. Regardless of what else you feel about Ubisoft's open world games, whether it's Assassin's Creed or Far Cry. I mean, Far Cry 6 is one of the worst games Ubisoft have ever made. But the world is good. The world building is something that they always do well, and they've done it especially well in Assassin's Creed Shadows. The 16th century Japan that they've built looks incredible. But has anybody ever heard of Ghost of Sushima? Because it's a 5-year-old game. It came out on the PlayStation 4. I have recently replayed it and actually finished it this time because I never finished it on the PlayStation 4. And as long as I've got Ghost of Tsushima, I don't need Assassin's Creed Shadows, because everything that Assassin's Creed Shadows does, Ghost of Tsushima does just as well. I said it looks better than Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's kind of subjective, because Assassin's Creed Shadows, it does look really, really good, and it is technically visually superior because, you know, it's a 2025 game. There's ray tracing, there's DLSS, there's all of these technologies making the world look amazing. But the thing about Ghost of Tsushima is it doesn't have any of that. It doesn't support ray tracing. It's a PlayStation 4 game. It doesn't support ray tracing. But what they've done with Ghost of Tsushima is you can look, you can do this for yourself now. You can go and Google Ghost of Tsushima screenshot, and the art direction in that game, every single screenshot, every frame of the game that you play looks like promotional art for the game. It is so incredibly pretty. And while it might not have the same technical level of graphical fidelity as Assassin's Creed Shadows, I think it looks better because of the art direction. It's like every screen of the game has been framed in a way to make it look as beautiful as possible. It's just stunning how good that game looks, considering how old it is. But that's another thing, isn't it? If you look at, what was it, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which is an 18-year-old game, and you look at it, go back and reinstall it and play it. It probably won't take that long. It probably doesn't require 100 gigabytes of storage space, and it looks fantastic. And then you look at, I don't know, the latest Call of Duty Warzone, and it looks good, but it doesn't look like 18 years worth of graphical advancement, does it? And it runs on a toaster compared to the kind of hardware requirements for the not that great a graphical improvement that modern games seem to require. But that's another issue that I could spend an entire day talking about. But and I've already don't get old, kids. As well as cancer and heart attacks and strokes, you get halfway through a conversation and you forget what it was that you were talking about. What were we looking at? How many foreign? No, that wasn't it. This is it. Baran Akatsuki from Eindhoven. Oh yeah, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Yes, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Assassin's. Well, there's a couple of things that are wrong with Assassin's Creed Shadows, but unless you just, and it's perfectly, you know, if you were just philosophically violently opposed to Ubisoft, which is fine, right? I get it. I'm not going to be buying Assassin's Creed Shadows, basically because screw Ubisoft, and also because I don't need to play Assassin's Creed Shadows because I've got Ghost of Tsushima, and everything that Assassin's Creed Shadows does well, so does Ghost of Tsushima, in some cases better, and everything that Assassin's Creed Shadows does badly, Ghost of Tsushima does well. So it's an overall better game, and I've already got it. So yeah, but if you don't have either, and you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed series, yeah, you probably won't regret playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. But you're probably still better off getting Ghost of Tsushima because it's better and it's cheaper and you can run it on a toaster. So there you go. But if you've got it and you're enjoying it, good for you. Yeah, despite all the negativity, as he says, it is a really nice game. Right, I think I'm going to have to make this one the last question because I am starting to get quite tired. This one, so apologies to everybody because there's nearly 100 of you turned up and I've posted questions, and I don't know how many I've gotten through, but it's not many. But this is going to be the last one. This is from Yamatog2. He says, how many foreign languages do you speak? And is there any language you'd like to learn? I'm asking this out of my own curiosity. I can guarantee there is no green owl holding my family hostage and pointing a gun at me as I type this. Also, he has another question, which he edited in after hearing me talk about Ghost of Tsushima. So I'll address that one. I always like to say I speak English and Afrikaans, but I don't really speak Afrikaans. I didn't even really speak Afrikaans when I was living in South Africa. So at the time in South Africa, before, while apartheid was still going on and was a thing, there were two official languages in South Africa. English and Afrikaans. Afrikaans being the language of the originally Dutch immigrants and settlers. And the majority white population in South Africa at the time, and probably still are the majority white population. So it's very, very similar to Dutch, which meant that anytime I'm in the Netherlands, I couldn't speak to people, which you didn't really need to in the Netherlands because most of them speak English. Most Europeans speak English anyway. That's the British thing, isn't it? Just going around the world speaking English at people, and if they don't understand you, you just speak English louder, because that's what the British do. But I could kind of, I mean, before things like Google Maps and AI agents and all that shit, and being able to pull up street maps on your phone, being able to at least understand written Dutch was very, very useful, because I could mostly figure out what all of the street signs were. And anytime I was on a ship that went to Amsterdam, for example, I was a great guy to go ashore with because I could find everything. But I don't really speak Afrikaans. I can speak a few phrases. If somebody was to actually try to start a conversation with me in that language, I would have no idea what they were saying. Even when I lived in South Africa and I was being taught Afrikaans in school, I was terrible at it. I had the typical British, I don't really need to learn this, do I, attitude, because everybody speaks English. So, because it's easy to be English, because everybody else speaks your language, and if they don't, well, they're probably not worth talking to, are they? So, yeah. No, I only really speak English. I'm fluent in English and bullshit, and I have a smattering of Afrikaans and Dutch, and that's about it. I'd love to learn German. Don't really know why. I've always wanted to learn German. I think there's something about the German language. I mean, Spanish would probably be more useful, or Portuguese, but it's just something about you get those memes on YouTube and probably TikTok as well, where you've got like somebody who's English, somebody who's French, somebody who's Spanish, and somebody who's German, all saying the same word but in their own language, and it's and it's like they say, it doesn't matter what the word is. One says it in English and it sounds like, it doesn't matter what the word is. It's how the word sounds. Say it in English and it sounds kind of posh, and somebody says it in French and it sounds kind of romantic and sexy, and then somebody says it, the same word but it's in Spanish and it sounds very sort of exotic and sensual, and then they say it in German and it's like Raus! Achtung, schnell! And it sounds like they're swearing at you and screaming at you, and it doesn't matter what word they're saying, it's just that's how it sounds in German. And I think that's why I love the sound of German. And also, I don't think it's that difficult a language to speak or to learn, because as long as you understand all of the base words, you can, even if you don't know the word for a complicated thing, you can probably guess it, because it's like in English we've got tanks, and in German you have Panzerkampfwagen, which just means armoured battle car, because that's exactly what a tank is. They don't make up new words for things, they just string together a bunch of existing words to make the new word, and then that new word is a thing, and then they abbreviate the new word if they have to. So instead of Panzerkampfwagen, it's just Panzer. Same with flak, which, I can't remember what the original word was, but flak is just an abbreviation for whatever the string of German words that were put together to mean anti-aircraft artillery became. So yeah, I'd like to learn German, even though it's probably, I say I'd like to, no, I wouldn't like to learn German, that's hard work. I'd like to know German. I'd like to skip the learning process and just go straight to the knowing part. That would be ideal, thank you. And we're going to finish off with, and because it's not an actual question, this is from Aurorix78. No question, happy you're back home and doing well. Thank you for all the content and features over the years. You bring smiles and joy to so many with your videos. May you have many, many more years to go. I certainly hope so. And I hope that this time next year, I'm not reporting that I've managed to get my bingo card complete and I've just suffered a stroke, because that would really, really suck. So thank you to everybody who turned up. And again, sincere apologies to anybody who turned up, posted a question, and I didn't get around to answering it. But I think I'm going to go and have a lie down, because I have exhausted myself. So again, thank you to everybody who turned up for the live Discord Q&A on the Sunday. And if you're watching this as Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles, I'm not dead yet. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.